I've been recently to Australia traveling along the east coast and it was amazing. Everything was just perfect and we created memories that will last a lifetime. If you want to know how we did it and how much we paid, just sit back and relax, I'll show you. We started our road trip in Sydney and so we spent our first day visiting the University of Sydney, the Harbour Bridge, the Opera House and the adjacent Botanical Garden. Especially the university is a hidden gem you should not miss out on. The second day we did the Bondi to Kogi walk, we saw spectacular coastlines alongside multiple bays and the destination was the iconic Bondi Icebergs Pool. Our third day started with the pickup of our camper van. We rented our van half a year prior to our trip through Motorhome Republic and therefore got an unbeatable price. Stay tuned to the end of the video to get a brief summary of all our costs. From Sydney we drove to our first camping spot in Boat Harbour where we slept our first night. The breakfast with view to the sunrise was just amazing. From there we headed to the Nambucca Heads where we stayed at a caravan park for another day. On our way we visited Australia's biggest sand dunes, the Stockton Sand Dunes. Even the walk to the sand dunes was beautiful. We had lunch and a quick swim at Crowley Bay. It's a beautiful beach with a phenomenal view. The next day we drove to Emerald Beach where we saw kangaroos right next to the shoreline on the cliffs. This experience was one of the highlights of our trip. We thought it couldn't get better, but the next day blowed our minds. We drove to the Red Cliff National Park where we directly camped in between a kangaroo family. I will never forget this day. From the 7th to our 9th day, we stayed in the town Byron Bay, where we slowed down our pace a little bit and enjoyed the beautiful city and coastline. On our 10th day we headed to the Gold Coast, where we had a short walk but stayed in a hostel in Brisbane. We walked along the common tourist spots and took the free ferries to see the illuminated city in the dark. After our breakfast with a phenomenal view, we drove to Noosaville where we stayed for 2 nights. We did another coastal walk, visited the farmers market and took some time off. The next stop was Hervey Bay, where we did a day tour on a ship to Kagari Island, also known as Fraser Island, and this island is the world's biggest sand island with perfect white sand and clear water. I definitely recommend visiting this beautiful place. On our 15th day, we drove straight to Early Beach where we wanted to take a 2-day sailing trip exploring the Whitsunday Islands. Unfortunately, the trip was kind of flop since the ship had a motor breakdown and the sleeping conditions on the boat were not acceptable. We only stayed 1 night on the ship before we left the boat with no refund. Besides that, the town was beautiful and also had a free lagoon where we took a swim. After this mixed experience, we headed to Townville where we stayed for another 2 days. On our way, we stopped at a large mango. The Google reviews were just amazing. The main attraction though was Magnetic Island. With the ferry we got onto the island where we saw multiple koalas. They just looked so cute. We also saw the rest of World War II bunkers on the island. The last 4 days of our road trip we stayed in Cairns. On our way we stopped at the Wallerman waterfall. It was kinda detour but it was definitely worth it. Just take a look for yourself. In Cairns we did a snorkeling tour to the Great Barrier Reef where I saw Nemo. This was amazing. I really recommend doing at least 1 snorkeling tour. We also tried to see the oldest rainforest, the Daintree rainforest, but unfortunately our day tour was stopped because of a not working ferry and heavy rain in the north. At least we saw a little bit of it. This was also the place where we saw the biggest spider of our road trip. And this was it, our road trip from Sydney to Cairns. We drove roughly 3,300 kilometers and spent a total amount of just under 4,000 euros per person. This includes everything: the flights, the tours, the accommodations, the camping grounds, the food and so on. I have to say that most of the time we cooked our own meals, but we also went out to eat a few times. I hope you could take a little for your own plannings. Feel free to like the video and if you have any questions just leave them in the comments down below.